So hello, today I would like to introduce you to an amazing woman. Today we will talk about the brain and the power of your brain, of our brain. She is Anat Baniel. I would like to let you to introduce yourself. Who are you?
Okay, so my name is Anat Baniel, and I work with helping people take advantage of the remarkable potential of their brains. So I work with adults, just normal people, and very often people come to me because they either have back pain or they have other issues, sometimes some illnesses, they've had accidents, and they want to come back to functioning.
Okay.
I've worked a lot with dancers, athletes, a lot of musicians, and
Because they had accidents?
musicians very often it's a repetitive stress injury. You know, they do a lot of repetitive movements playing the music, and they get neck pain, shoulder pain, bursitis, tendinitis. You know, all the itises, and it can be it stops them from the freedom to perform because you have to move to be able to move freely to create music.
Yes.
Dancers, obvious, and so they come to me. These people, very often, the reason they first come to me is because they have a problem. So as long as they can practice and do what they're doing,
It's okay.
and they get as good as they can get, but that's what they are trained to do. When they have a problem and they can't, and it doesn't go away, then they start looking for solutions.
And you are the solution.
Well, yes, very often I am the solution. They usually start with the doctors, and some of them even have, surgeries, medical interventions, medications. And when that doesn't work well enough, they come to me. Now more people come to me sooner because they find out about me sooner.
Yes. The more you are famous,
or
the
recognized,
more it's better for the people.
Yes, they're aware of it. So these are the adults, and I work a lot with children with special needs. That was not something I intended to do or planned to do, but I write about it in my book, Kids Beyond Limits. I had this first child that I encountered through my teacher, which I'll talk to you about in a bit. And it was remarkable. It was just like magic, what was going on. And as a result, my teacher started referring children to me.
Wow.
And I started working with children, and I was not trained to work with children. I'm trained as a clinical psychologist. I was a dancer, and also I have a degree in statistics, and I'm interested in the sciences. So I was a mishmash of things. And I started working with the kids. And
when you say kids, what age?
Well, by now, anywhere from 5 days up. But then it was usually a year, 2, 3, 4, depends when they discovered me. Cerebral palsy, different kinds of brain damage, autism, genetic disorders, anything that interferes with their ability to spontaneously grow well. Anything that interferes with the ability of the brain to learn as it would have otherwise. So the principles that I use are applicable for healthy children and healthy adults because it's helping the brain do its job better. So you move better, you think better, you feel better, you get much more potent all across. But the driving force of people initially to find me is usually trouble.
Okay, so you are saying about trouble. Let's imagine that people who are following us, they think they don't have any trouble. What could be the other
Let me
angle?
promise you, everybody,
Yeah.
if they close their eyes for one moment and are honest with themselves, there are things they want to do better. There are things they feel bad about. So people want to have a better posture, or people have some pain sometimes, or people start feeling like they're older, or they want to be able to play sports better, or they do their yoga a little more flexible, or they feel that they're not good lovers, or they feel that they're not. What happens is that people oftentimes can ignore that if they can do well enough, because very often the culture doesn't support continued growth. You know, there's a wonderful biologist, evolutionary biologist, Gould, that wrote many, many books. Unfortunately, he died young. And in one of his books, he says that human beings are born to die unfinished. The thing that separates us from all other species that we know of is that we are born very unfinished. We are born not being able to do anything independent, right? And our brain is going to have to create 5 times its own size by the time, you know, we're, you know, young teenagers. We are born with a very unfinished, but the quality, the way that the biology of the brain works is that it never closes the deal. It never finishes. We can use ourselves as if we're a finished product, but we thrive. We are healthiest. Our immune system works best. Everything works better in us, all our systems, when we keep growing and learning as if we're unfinished, because we are unfinished.
Okay.
Does that make sense what I said?
Advantage and inconvenience of this kind of system.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
I mean that we could think that it could be a disadvantage to come in this planet in being unfinished.
Oh yeah.
But it helps us to grow.
It's actually our biggest advantage. If you think, I mean, we're also doing some things that are not good as a result, but if you think lions, tigers, elephants, you name it, all the animals that are bigger and stronger than us, and we are in charge, right?
Yes.
It's intelligence, it's creativity, it's invention. I mean, try to imagine that you could go back in history 200 years. Only 200 years, it's nothing.
Yes.
Even 100, even 80, but 200 years. And try to tell these people what you're doing here with me now.
You kind of magician.
Talk internet. I mean, it's remarkable, and we're not done. We're never done. That's our biggest advantage, and that people don't understand.
Okay, we are born with the ability to grow, right?
We're born with the necessity to grow.
Okay.
I work with children that have trouble growing. I work with adults that have trouble, and the way they get out of it is through growing. So people think, you know, a lot of times because of more traditional psychotherapy and approaches, people have the model of the onion. You know, oh, I have a problem, let's peel the onion until we get to the core, till I become my true self, right? I tell my students, if you peel the onion, what will happen is after you finish peeling on the layers, there'll be nothing, and you'll have a lot of tears. There's nothing to go. The way to, most of the time, the way to get past limitation, past trouble, to do better, is what we don't know yet. It's what we haven't developed in ourselves, in our own brains yet.
Okay, so how can we do to develop the...
Good question. That is where I live. You know, that's where my work lives, that's where I live. So, so I want to suggest 2-3 things about the brain in general, and then I'll go into the techniques, the tools to do it, because they're very simple.
Do you mean the 9 essentials?
The 9 essentials.
Okay.
Yeah. So the brain it grows connections and forms itself. It structures itself through experiences from within its own, from the body, from inside, and from outside, from our interaction with the world. And it does it extremely rapidly early on. When a child is in a learning mode, the estimate is 1.8 million new connections per second on the average. So it's about 100 million new connections per minute, right? So you can keep doing the math.
Yes.
It's enormous potency, right? And the brain works with large numbers. You know, it's large numbers, and So that's the brain change. That's the brain plasticity, right? And we create, and the brain organizes itself and it puts order in the disorder and makes sense out of the nonsense.
Wow.
So if it weren't your brain doing it, you would look at me now, you would see metaphorically like pixels, but you wouldn't see face, eyes, nose, ears. That's something that your brain learned. You made it up in your brain.
Okay.
So if you're really drunk, have you ever been really, really drunk or something like that? And all of a sudden you can't make sense of the key and the shape, and that you lost some of your ability to put order in the disorder temporarily. And people have brain damage and they can't make sense of the sounds anymore. They don't understand language. They know they could, they even know it's language, but they can't make sense of it. I'm giving those examples so that it becomes more concrete for you and for the listener. So the brain's job is to put order in the disorder and make sense out of the nonsense.
Wow, I love this sentence.
This is it, that's its job. And and when it does that, it does it in terms of the physiology of it. You know, it's the whole structure and the connections and the impulses that go through and so on. But and in the brain is basically an information system. And so I asked myself the question: what's the information?
Yes.
How do we get information? How does the brain?
By our sensor.
Yeah, and most people think of information as stimulation. So I rub the hand and that's the information. And because of my work with children, that it was through the work with children that I realized that's not what it is. I mean, we need it. Without it, nothing happens. But I worked with a child that couldn't talk. So in therapy, the way they tried to get the child to talk was to take the tongue of the child and brush the tongue with a toothbrush to stimulate the tongue. Now, if you take a moment and you imagine somebody taking your tongue and starting to rub it with a brush, it would probably be very unpleasant. Yeah. And because the child had cerebral palsy, the stimulation also made him, it was an overflow in the brain, so that he got more tight. And it was harder for him to do and understand anything. And then I thought, he doesn't need more stimulation, he needs less stimulation. Because with the stimulation that he gets, he can't make sense of it. Any stimulation he gets, all he does is all the muscles contract. So he never learns to move, he can't do anything, he can't learn anything. And that's when I realized that what the information is when the brain can discern, can perceive a difference.
Okay, like a contrast.
Exactly. So if I'm colorblind and there is black and white, I don't see black and white and I don't have the distinction of color. There's no color because there's no difference. So a good brain, a powerful brain, is a brain that is able to perceive finer and finer differences. So when we want to get really good at something, we want to be able to notice more and more differences.
Okay.
On the kinesthetic level, like the muscles and the joints, what we feel from our movement, visually, auditorily, smell, and eventually thoughts. You see, everything, you start looking at the world, you say, what's the level of refinement that this person can generate?
Do you think is it what makes champion, for example, the ability to...
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you look at musicians, from a certain level up, they all play the notes. What makes the difference between a good pianist and Arthur Rubinstein?
Yes,
it's what he can hear and how he connects it to movement and the expression. What makes a difference between a child scribbling lines and a Picasso, right? He also scribbled lines.
Wow.
Yeah.
Make me sing.
I can see that. Exactly. Excellent. So once we accept the premise, if you accept it at least for the duration of the interview, that a good brain is a brain that has ease and is looking to perceive differences. That means it's awake, it becomes aware easily, it notices stuff, and it does stuff with that information. It moves it around. Because once you feel differences, the way you're going to put it together is unpredictable, completely unpredictable. So,
Just before, you are
yes,
saying
sure.
that we can increase our ability to see small differences.
To perceive small differences, to see, to hear, to
Yes.
feel, to smell. That's exactly right. Our ability to perceive differences, the potency in which we perceive differences, can increase and increase and increase and increase to the point of being absolutely remarkable.
And just before, because I have so many questions in my mind, do you know in NLP,
Yes.
I'm not sure of the English term, but
Say it in French maybe first, and
yeah,
then I'll help you.
I will try in English.
Okay, go for it.
Yes, meta program. Do you understand that?
Mhm.
They say that some people are more global and other people more specific.
Mhm.
So, do you think the specific people will be more?
No, not necessarily. No.
Okay.
I know NLP. I met Richard Bendler, and and I knew very well Leslie Bendler and some other people. Yeah. So, and I read the books and all that stuff. So it's not exactly overlap, but one of the ways to think is one of the things that the brain is supposed to do is to both do the background and the foreground, the focused and the general. And actually, a really good brain can move from one to the other easily.
Okay.
And a really, really good brain can keep a foreground and still have the background there. These are like the great martial artists,
Yeah, I was
masters.
thinking
You know, they can focus on this, but they don't lose the
in
bigger.
sport they do that. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So it's a different thing. So people that are very focused don't necessarily perceive differences better. They can be really bad at it, actually.
That's why pianists
Mm-hmm.
in early age develop a lot of the brain.
Okay, so that is what happens is the brain responds to its experience. So if you use your fingers to play the piano, the differentiation. So what happens is when you perceive a difference. So a baby is born, and all it can do is this and let go, flex the hands and let go.
Yeah.
And when
Simple
they're
movement.
awake and active, actually, their flexors, the brain stimulates the muscles, and it's a healthy thing. I mean, and the hands tend to be in a fist. And then a few weeks, months pass, and all of a sudden the baby does that. Have you seen babies go like
Yes.
that?
A new
And
movement.
Yeah, and they discovered that this is not this. They didn't
Wow.
know it. They don't even know it's their hands. In the beginning, it's these things that
And how they discover it?
well, through movement. Movement is movement is it. Movement is the driving force of everything, and I'll talk about it in a minute.
Yes.
But and then they discover it, and then they can do this independently. This is like so exciting, you know. And then they do that, and people respond so that it accelerates it. This gets mapped in the brain, relative by itself, but also relative in movement to other parts. So a big part of what happens with the brain is when you learn to distinguish the fingers, play the piano. It's highly complex, but you have to feel this finger is not this finger, it's different fingers, right? And then you feel the wrist, and you have to feel the shoulder, and of course, hopefully in the future, they'll teach them to feel their whole bodies when they play the piano. That's part of the problem.
Yes.
They don't get really good at it, most people. So the brain becomes engaged with that, and that area of the brain becomes more densely mapped. It's literal connections that
Yes.
control the movement, and because it's also the music, and it's also how you want the music to be, loud and soft or romantic or hard. It engages more and more of the brain, and it really gets the brain requires of the brain to operate on a higher level. That's, I believe, one of the reasons that kids that learn music and also learn classical music tend to be smarter. They're not really smarter than other kids to begin with, but they get themselves to be smarter because they put a demand on the brain that gets the brain to operate, to be more at a higher potency. You see, the brain can work at a higher level and lower levels.
Yes.
And as we evolve, we can learn to use our brains better and better. You think of it like a heart. You think of it of anything. It's a tool. It's a organ that has a job to do. You know, when we get really tired, we don't do as well. So I can be brilliant at 10 in the morning and an idiot at 10 at night. And I actually am usually that way. You know, by the time the day's over, I'm not going to be brilliant. I'm too tired. I've got to eat and go to sleep.
Wow.
It's the same brain, but I potentiate it, depotentiate it, potentiate it, depotentiate it.
Yes.
But I can only potentiate it to the level that I've learned how to potentiate it.
Yeah.
So then we can get engaged in a process.
And you can discover
the next level.
The new level.
Yeah, exactly.
And learn how to manage it, and then the new level.
Exactly. That's why people who are very good at one thing usually are very good at other things.
Oh, can you repeat that?
People who are really good at doing one thing, like what's his name, Itzhak Perlman, the violin player. I read an article about him, and the friends talk about him. You know, he's the violin player.
Yeah.
He's also.
Do you know him?
Personally, no.
Okay.
Had a paralysis of his legs. Polio as a child.
Wow.
So, and he's a magnificent. Itzhak Perlman is one of the world's best violin players, and there was a big spread on him in the New York Times, the Sunday magazine, I think, a few years ago, and they said, "Oh, he cooks fantastically well, and he does this fantastically well, and he does that fantastically well." And I said, "Of course, because he's a brain. I mean, once the brain knows to do one thing really well, it knows to do other things really well. It can learn really quickly."
So I just add one small question before the 9 essentials. Let's imagine I would like to learn piano, cooking, and video editing.
Mm-hmm.
3 different domains. So if I have to find the best strategies to learn the quickest way, the 3 domains, it is to focus on one domain, teach my brain to go deeper or higher, I don't know, and then go to the next things, or try to learn the 3 things at the same time.
Well, you can't do it really at the same time, but you mean parallel, like
Yes.
Within the same time frame. Well, I will give you a short answer now, and then maybe when we talk about the essentials, we can expound on it. It's a combination of the two. So you want to use the essentials for each and every one of them. So if you want to really have high potency of learning, once I tell you what the essentials are, I would use them in learning to do videography,
Yes.
cooking, and piano playing.
Yes.
And I would focus on one of them for a little period of time, let's say a week or 10 days or something like that.
Okay.
And then I would actually leave it alone
Wow.
and focus on something else.
Okay. Short period.
Yes, I will focus. And then in the period where I focus on something else, I will do 2 or 3 times 1 hour, 2 hours of what I was doing before. I wouldn't completely leave it alone. But I'll do it after I took a break. So let's say if you're getting a lesson in videography and you started learning to play the piano, you take a walk, you have lunch, you take a little nap, then you play the piano for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you go back to videography.
Okay, so the more you are training yourself, the more you are decreasing the times to change the activity.
Well, what you want to do is you want to give yourself enough time to really familiarize. I think of learning, of all learning, what I teach, when I start, I also train people to be practitioners in what I do. So the first day I said, think of it like learning a new language.
Yes, I would love to know.
Yeah. By the way, yes, you would be able to use those principles. So, excuse me. So, if so in the beginning, you don't know anything, and the brain, it's like a soup, right? So you hear sounds and I remember it because when I was a child, my father took our family to Berkeley. So I was from Israel. We lived in Israel. We came to Berkeley, and everybody spoke English, and I spoke Hebrew, and they put me in school in my age group. I was 11 years old, so it was junior high school.
Wow.
And it was the smartest thing they did because they were very kind to me, the teachers. They gave me time. They didn't insist I do homework right away, which was absolutely remarkable. And when I think of it now backwards. And I remember in the beginning, it just sounded like, I knew it was something that's not my language, but it was just a mess. It was like a soup. It was like nothing, right? Yeah. Just noise.
Yes, I understood that.
And then I remember one day, spontaneously, I knew when a sentence began and when a sentence ended. I had no idea what it meant. I didn't understand meaning yet of the words. I didn't know the words, but I could tell beginning and end of sentence, beginning and end of sentence.
Okay.
So at the age 11, I had the experience of learning a language like a newborn. And then a certain amount of time passed. I can't tell you how long because I wasn't thinking of it. I was 11. Yeah. But I remember becoming aware that all of a sudden I could tell when a word began and a word ended.
Okay.
So within the sentence, I could start perceiving. So my brain started discovering the structure of the English language. It could impose order. And then all of a sudden meaning. I started understanding meaning. And in about a month to 5 weeks, I spoke English. I was 11. I immersed myself. Then I went to France. I wanted to learn to speak French, so I was 17 and something, and I had time before I had to go to the army in Israel. So I asked my father to send me to France to learn French. So I went to Besançon, and they have a program there for French. Same story. I spoke maybe 2 sentences of French, but I spoke English, so I could. In 3 months, I spoke French. You understand? So now I haven't used French much. I haven't read much in French, so I've lost a bunch of it. But I spoke French, and I had no inhibition. You know, I made mistakes in grammar and everything. I didn't care. I just spoke.
Yes, I do that.
Yeah, children do the same thing. So bringing it to you wanting to learn 3 different things.
It is it is something important to be able to do a lot of mistakes, to learn.
Huge. That's one of my essentials.
Okay.
We'll get to the essentials. Yes, no, but it's good that you said because it's good it's coming from you because then it's a lot more powerful than if it's all coming from me.
Yes.
So anytime you want to learn something new, that I would approach it like a newborn learning a language. So first of all, you want to go where people speak that language. You want to be with a piano. You want to be around pianos. You want to, and I tell people, even those who already play, even, professional people that make a living at it, I have them start doing silly things. I'll tell, like playing with their elbows or playing with their heels or mixing it up. Because a little child, if you put it in front of a piano, it'll do all kinds of weird things with the piano. It doesn't know it's supposed to be operated, right? So you give it room to discover and for the brain to do its work of figuring it out. So you want to learn 3 things? Immerse yourself, but then don't overdo it. Back out, give yourself rest. As important in learning is giving yourself time to rest, time to stop. Do it and then don't do it. Then do it and then don't do it.
Every day you mean?
Every day.
And how do I know that I have to rest?
20 minutes. There's research that shows that real active learning, 20 minutes max at a time.
So I do 20 minutes focus.
Yeah.
And then I rest.
You rest, you do something else. You go do something else, you come back. Your learning will just be exponentially more potent. Very different than how schools are constructed and how people think things should work. Yeah. So let's go into the essentials because then it'll make a lot more sense.
Yes.
Okay? So we want to help the brain perceive differences and potentiate it in its ability to put order in the disorder and make sense out of the nonsense. That's our job right now, okay? So the first thing is movement with attention. First of all, first thing is movement. I mean, without movement, there's nothing, right? If you really stop moving, you're dead. And Einstein said, nothing happens until something moves. And my teacher, Dr. Feldenkrais, said, movement is life. Without movement, life is unthinkable. And for him, if you couldn't think it, it was over. So it didn't exist. So, movement. But not movement the way grown-ups that want to look good and be fit think of movement like exercise. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, repetition. Yes. It's movement with attention. Attention to what you feel as you move.
Okay, so you can do every move, but you just pay attention of what you are doing.
To what you feel.
Yes, what you feel.
That's actually key.
Okay.
So I move my arm.
Yes. And
I feel where it's moving. I feel, is it heavy? Oh, I can feel my fourth finger more than the other fingers. Oh, I can feel something moving in my chest in front. I feel what I'm doing. Research, Merzenich, movement without attention, zero detectable change in the brain.
It's amazing because we told just yesterday, I think so, to someone who lost a lot of kilos,
weight,
lots of weight, and she learned that in paying attention just to how she hit, she lost a lot of.
Did she do Jeanine Roth's work?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. That's another person that I don't know if she'll be agreed to be interviewed, but she's remarkable.
Okay.
She wrote Women, Food, and God. And she wrote 30 years ago. She wrote When Food is Love. She's the one that started connecting. Yeah. So maybe she got to it by herself, but yeah, absolutely. So you pay attention to what you feel as you move. That's when the brain sprouts connections like there's no tomorrow. Fast. 1.8 million per second.
Wow.
Estimated. And children do that spontaneously. You've seen babies kind of. And you think, oh, what a waste of time. Without it, they will never learn to move. And in the beginning, children have random movements. They don't have intentional, they twitch and stuff. And without this random movement, they will never learn to move. Because it gets them to feel the shift of weight, feel pulls and pushes, and they all the time pay attention to what they feel. And they sleep a lot, they eat a lot, and they do this wasteful thing. And their brain starts right away starts organizing this and then organizing that and having control over the mouth and then the eyes and then gradually the head and then the hands take quite a while.
The brain is making connection
between the different parts, very dynamic. It's very, very dynamic.
Yes.
It's not like arm in the brain. It's the brain actually maps the whole body in action. So if I'm doing this, the brain has to map the whole body for this.
Yeah, it's amazing for me because like I said, I was a computing engineer, and we studied artificial intelligence, and it was based on this I don't know how to say on this way. Just connect the sensor with the motion, and every time you do that to help the robot to learn how to move.
Yeah, and I, if I understand correctly, in trying to do language recognition.
Yes.
In the beginning, they tried to do one-to-one, right? Yes. And they realized that you do the smallest deviation, and the computer can't recognize it.
Yes.
So you actually want to give the computer, you want to randomize the process, and you want to give the computer variations so it can recognize it, and it's similar to what the brain does. The brain does, it's of course much more complex, and we don't fully know everything the brain does. But yes, you're absolutely on the right track. So actually, there's enormous amount for me, having learned statistics has actually been extremely useful in understanding how to work with people, because I realize, so let's say if a child has a problem, or an adult had a stroke, or if somebody has back pain, people try to correct it by telling people the right thing to do. Stand straight, take your shoulders back, stretch the arm, try to stretch it and make it hold a fork. And they do it again and again. And it's so sad because it really doesn't work.
Okay.
And people keep doing it because they think it should work. Because they think you go directly to the point of outcome.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
What I do is I create a lot of, I randomize the process, and within a context, so it holds it together. It's functional, but I do it like this and do it like that. So one of essentials on purpose. You do things in different ways, and the brain spontaneously integrates it into the solution. So the way I do it when I teach my students, I said we have enormous amount of say in the process, and we have zero control over the outcome. But if you understand the process and you feed the process or the information, what you need, you can count on it getting better and better. Okay. I've gotten children that were not supposed to stand up to stand, to walk, to talk. I've taken people who've had stroke and helped them into full functioning. I've got musicians and top musicians, like world famous musicians, that were thought that they had to change careers, to come back to their careers, and not just be able to play in terms of the pain, but play better than they ever played before.
What could be the best way to learn to the people who are like that, to put their body like that?
To start doing movements, and I'm not trying to sell my materials, but I have lessons that talk, when you do it, movement is I call movement the language of the brain, okay? So I have movement lessons that give the opportunity for the brain to feel how other options.
Okay, so you don't say...
Never
do like that?
No.
Try that. How do you feel with that? How do you feel with that?
Well, I mean, if I give them variations, then it's good. I said, do this, and do you like this or no? Do this. But a lot of times people can't do variations. They're so stuck. Their brain, you see, the brain gets certain habits. And
they can do or they can feel?
They can't feel it, they can't do it, they don't have the connections, they just can't do it. So it's like if you told me now to somersault backwards, I'd say like, I have to have a process to have the bits and pieces so I can know the trajectory of movement to somersault backwards. So if somebody always sits hunched like that, I mean, I can be hunched or not hunched, but the thing that brings you forward is freeing the belly, arching the back, and letting the spine shoot forward and up. Many people hold their belly in, they don't know they're holding their belly in. Their back muscles are asleep. They're not, the brain is not either connected. Some people, it's actually literally never was properly connected, or it's inhibited, it's not awake. And you tell them sit like this, and they go like this, and they throw their head back, and they tight, and then in 2 minutes they're going to have to go back. It's too uncomfortable. So you have to give people a process where they get new information to do something new.
Yes, I would love to know that.
Yes, exactly. So movement with attention. You take the movements you already know. You already do. It can be walking. It can be rolling on the floor. It can be dance. It can be anything. And you shift your attention from trying to perform it a certain way or just doing it automatically like on a treadmill in a gym. And you just take 5-7 minutes to just pay attention to what you feel and where you feel it. Soles of your feet, the back of your head. You just learn to sort of scan yourself like that. Then you go back to just doing what you're doing and you'll feel different. You'll notice that the pain is gone. It's amazing how quickly it works. It's silly how miraculous it can be. The changes are just like pop. They pop like popcorn. Second essential is slowing down. Extremely important. If you want something new to happen for you, if you're learning something, slow down.
What do you mean?
I mean, like literally slow down. So if you're going to learn to play the piano, you go and you on purpose play really slow.
Okay, yeah.
You see, you're going to do the camera. You don't just go like that. That you do when you're already an expert.
Okay, for example, if I take the language, I have to speak slowly.
You speak slow. If I try to teach you, I'm going to teach you to say a word in Hebrew, okay? Something in Hebrew. Boker tov. Try to say it.
Bouquet of.
That's pretty good because you're French, so you can hear the sounds in it. Shichlul.
Shirlut.
You see, this one you couldn't catch. Shichlul. You can't catch it. It's too fast because it's foreign. You see, I gave you in Hebrew something that you don't say in French, which is the cha sound. Now I'm going to say it slowly. Shir lul.
Shir lul.
Voila. You see, you did it. Now you might forget it in a nanosecond because it's so new, but you could say it because it was slow enough for your brain to follow.
To see the differences.
Exactly. She lul. She lul. Now you have the cha sound. You see, so it's one sound, another sound, word. I'm giving you a word that I want to talk about in a few minutes. So, fast, we can only do what we already know. Just put that on your forehead. Fast, we can only do what we already know.
Okay. So
that's how the brain is built.
We build life in reproducing what we did.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's important to be able to do things fast. So habits are important. And that's another form of brain plasticity. It's called Hebbian plasticity, where you do something, you do it again, you do it again, blah, 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 and then you just do it, you don't even think about it. It goes
like
into
walking, speaking.
Yeah, and it's important to be able to do things without having to pay full attention and go slow. But if you want to learn, if you want to upgrade the quality of the functioning of your brain and to get the brain to be this really amazing thing it can be, slow down.
Wow.
Sometimes people don't learn, and if all you do is you ask them to do what they're doing slowly or what they're trying to do, and all of a sudden they can do it. So many kids fail in school because the teachers run through the thing. I work with kids that are considered, challenged or they have real difficulties. I work with kids on the autism spectrum that the world absolutely doesn't make sense to them. And I'm doing a training now for people to learn how to work with autistic kids. So I've been showing videos of my own work, and I usually don't watch my own work because I don't care. I've done it already, but I show it to them, and I can see how I'm doing it. And you see, from Monday to Wednesday, in 3 days, a boy, 13-year-old, that talks but nonsense, and agitated and anxious and a mess, just a mess, autistic, really autistic. The 4th day, quiet, lying on the table, I say, bend your knee, put your feet standing, lift your pelvis, turn around, da-da-da. He says something, I say, that was nonsense. What are you trying to talk about? He already knows the difference between sense and nonsense. So then he can start joking about it. 3 days, 6 lessons.
So, for example, for me, I have to explain to people that to have quick results,
slow down.
Slow. Okay. What
That's
is
excellent.
The third one?
Third one is reducing the force with which you do things. These things really actually work together. You slow down, you reduce the force, you pay attention to what you feel. You reduce the force. So very often when we try to do something,
letting go.
It's not letting go, it's doing it with as little force as possible. So if I'm trying to learn how to do a certain movement, people go again fast and hard. Again, it's how the brain is built. So think of people trying to learn to ride a bicycle. Okay?
Yes.
They fall in the beginning, right?
Yes.
They get they fall, and they get and they fall, right?
Yes, they want to go fast to not fall.
They fast would help them not fall because of the structure of the. But they fall because they use too much force and they use too many muscles that they shouldn't be using. What they really learn is to not do undifferentiated, crude, that's why they fall. To really ride the bicycle, you have to adjust.
Differences.
differences and differentiation and refinement. You understand? When you want to, the people who do tricks on, like in circuses and stuff, they stand on one leg, and the bicycle wants to fall all the time, the gravitational force, but they feel the finest little difference, and they can move their spine in tiny little ways and their head to adjust. If they did big adjustments, they'd fly, they'd fall. The adjustments are too big, they're too forceful. And you know what happens when we use a lot of force? We lose sensitivity. You see, if the sound is really loud, that's a form of force, of intensity. Another way of saying it is intensity. So if you do very strong intensity of sound, I put some sound in the back, you don't hear the difference. You walk down Broadway Avenue in New York, and somebody talks to you this way, you will never hear them. It's too much background. Light, same thing, a lot of light. You add a little light, you're a filmmaker, you wouldn't see the difference. But it's dim or it's dark, you do the tiniest light, far away you see it. The brain is built to discern differences in relation to the background noise. Noise meaning intensity.
Yeah, I can see that when I am listening music or a video in the plane. I increase the volume.
Because there's a in the background of the plane, right? Right, exactly. So again, when I work with people, and like some of the, again, world premier musicians, and they're already, I can't do what they do. I mean, they're amazing, but I can hear. I hear very clearly. And I get them to do it with less force and slower and pay attention to what they feel. I said, don't worry about the notes right now. Don't worry to play correctly. The worst thing to do when you want to do better is to try to do things correctly up front. How do you know what's correct? If you're going to do something new, you don't know it, right? People are crazy. They try to do something they've never done right from the beginning.
And the right thing that don't exist.
I know, but there's an optimization.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you're trying to do it right or well before you know what you're doing, you're never going to get beyond mediocre, guaranteed. The people who get really good at what they do are the people that are interested in what they're doing, not wanting an outcome up front. So the next essential is variations. You can call variations play, you can call it mistakes, intentional mistakes, but I call it variations.
Just try new things.
Yes, but if we're talking of something specific you're learning, do the same thing in different ways. Do it badly. So this is it's in the book, one of my favorite stories. So I was working with this really well-known a cellist from one of the top quartets in the world. And he was depressed, he was in a lot of pain, and he could barely play. And that was his life, right? He played since he was a little boy. And so he came with his cello, and I was in Germany, and I had time for one lesson to give him. And I looked at him, and I asked him to play the Schubert, beautiful, but I looked at him and I thought, oh my God, he's a genius if he can play moving so poorly, you know. I mean, it's like, and I could see how he was taught as a child, you know, harsh and constrained and do it this way. So he figured out how to do it, but now he's paying the price, right? So there was no time to put him to do my usual process. So I kept him with the cello, and I asked him to play for me, Anna Magdalena Bach, like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, right? And he was almost offended because he's one of the world's best cellists, and I'm asking him to play, what little children begin. And I said to him, don't worry. I know you can play very complex things. But that was already a variation. He's not been asked to play this for many years. So it's a kind of like a cognitive, emotional, kind of like, what, me play that? So it's already not like I'm this, because he has a full identity, including the pain, right? Then I said to him, can you play it badly?
Wow.
And he was a little bit taken aback. I encouraged him, and he couldn't do it. He was so compulsive about playing well He's always looked to play well his whole life. So I said to him, do you teach little students? You know, musicians usually have students. He said, yes. I said, do some of them play badly? He said, yes. I said, just think of one of them, remember how they played badly, and imitate it. So he did that. I gave him a pathway to playing badly. So he did that. So then I said to him, play badly in a different way.
It was funny for him?
Then he got interested. He was a very serious guy, but he got interested. Third way to play badly, then he got really interested. Fourth way to play badly, he got very, very, and when he was doing it, I was moving him. I was also doing my stuff, so he couldn't play well no matter what. I was moving his shoulders and everything. But he was, and then I asked him to do it a fifth way. He couldn't think of a fifth way. I said, now go and just play. The pain was gone. So this is how powerful variations are.
It was because our brain was rigid?
Yeah, he was stuck in his pattern. And a healthy brain is a brain that invents all the time. It comes a little like this, a little like that. Then you get a habit, but then you can get out of it and do things differently. You know, I have a good friend. You should interview her too. She's now in Colorado. She's Ellison Armstrong.
I will go in Colorado in September.
Ellison Armstrong. Interview Ellison. She works on relationships, men, women. She's amazing. She's wonderful, and she used to be in TLC. She's not doing it right now, but she teaches certain things in her workshops, and she would spend hours trying to teach those things. I won't go into it right now what it is, and the women would sort of get it, and then what the men, and she understood what I'm doing. And now she tells them, I want you to learn it, but do it what you do. Now don't do it badly. Now do it badly another way. She figured it out. She says, in 5 minutes, 150 women know how to do it. So she's been trying to teach it correctly. 3 days it didn't work. She asked them to do it this way, badly. Find out how. She brings a few of them to the stage, you know, to. You're going to teach. You're going to change how you teach. I can see that now. You're starting to understand it.
Yes, and sometimes just for the fun, I ask for people, show me how you are distressed.
Yeah.
And I am thinking, okay, it's not only fun; it's teaching people.
No, you say, are you always depressed the same way? Show me being depressed one way, another way. Show me being, if you take variation, if you read also the book Kids Beyond Limits, I talk about it. I talk about a real case where they never mind the whole story, where they put the baby in a cast. Healthy baby. So he didn't have the random movements, he didn't have the variation, he couldn't move. When they took the cast off, his brain didn't know how to do it. Couldn't do it. I mean, you did programming. Without variations, we can't learn.
Yes.
When I have kids that have a hard time doing math, I say, how much is 1 + 1? They say 4. I say, great. How much is 2 + 3? How much is that? And the parents, now they read my book, they know what I do, but in the beginning, parents would come to me, they pay me a lot of money, and I'm teaching their kids the wrong thing. And I say to the kid, don't worry about the right answer. I already know it. You don't have to give me the correct answer, because I know it. I mean, this is one of the biggest crazy things that teachers do. It's how much is 1 and 1? It's, why do I have to tell you? You already know it, don't you? So, and I get every child to understand numbers. I've not had a child yet that I couldn't get them to understand numbers, including genetic this and da-da-da.
Wow.
I mean, not all of them become brilliant mathematicians, but they understand numbers, they can do basic manipulations. And then I reverse it. They ask me, and I make mistakes. And of course, the beginning mistakes, I make them big enough so they can feel the difference. You see? Well, how much is 1 and 1? 2,000. And they go, no, you made a mistake. Well, if they know it's not 2,000, they're getting close to knowing what it is.
And what do you say when they do a mistake? What do you say?
I don't call it a mistake.
Yes, but what do you say?
I say, great. It's great. Why not? Why not have 3 + 4 be 25? for now.
And how do they know that it's not the right answer?
Well, I do all kinds of stuff and I keep moving them so their brain can sort information better. And I get them there. Read the book. I talk about that too. But I tell you a story. A child on the autism spectrum, Andy, and I did this, I don't know, a few months ago. And he couldn't write letters and he could, and he recognized letters when I wrote them, but he couldn't write and he couldn't read. He couldn't put it together. So first, you see, everybody does the opposite of what I described to you. So first they gave him a sheet with two lines, and told him to write inside the lines because it was so messy, right? So that didn't work. So they created squares and say, write the letter in the square. Soon enough, they were going to sit on him, right? It was like, this is force, by the way. When you can't keep something in a certain, and you try to force it into it, it's a form of force. Force is not just mechanical force.
So you just ask him to...
So I wrote a letter, and I said, do you know what it is? I wrote a capital letter. I said, what is it? He said, A. I was so happy. I didn't know if he was going to recognize it. I don't know. I find out. So I said, great. I had this little thing with paper, and I write. I say, now, you write A, but write it really badly. So I'm asking him to do what he's going to do anyway. And I have no idea. So nobody ever asked him to write badly. So it caught his attention. You see, it's a form of movement. It's ideational movement with attention. So he thought and thought and thought and thought. And then so he had to run some images in his head. He had to do something in relation to that letter. So he started to notice bad, good, worse, better. And then he went and he just did a dot. So I said to him, that's real bad. I said, it's so bad I would never even guess it's a letter. I speak the truth to the kids, or to the adults too. And I said to him, make it bad, but not so bad.
Yes, you inverse the process.
So, and then what I did, never mind, until we did all kind of, and then he chose a letter and I wrote it badly, and then, we went back and forth. And then I created a square, and I could see he's holding his breath, he already knows he's going to fail, right? And I said to him, Andy, what letter do you want to write? He chose a letter, and I said, I want you to write it, but one condition, that not all of the letter is in the square. See, so I impose a variation. I said, not all the... And this is an autistic kid that didn't used to look in your eyes, right? And they're out to lunch, right? They don't relate. All that story, right? He looks at me, his eyes are this big, and he says, you are kidding me. I said, no, I'm very serious. And he sat down, and he thought and thought and thought, and meticulously made sure that part of the letter is in and part of the letter is out. I knew that we're done, because now he knows where's above, below, to the side. I said to the mother, don't do any homework with him. They fly in from Utah. So she does work with him in the hotel. I said, and just let him do what he wants. I bet you he's going to take the paper and write letters inside the lines. She said, he took the paper when they got to the hotel, an hour and a half he wrote letters inside the lines. Because all of a sudden he could see it, his brain could make sense of it. Variations, very important. So, we've had movement with attention to what you feel, slowing down, reducing the force, variation. The next one is flexible goals. I don't know if I'm saying them in order, but the next one is flexible goals. Flexible goals mean we want to have goals, but again, we cannot put the goal in the front. The goal should be thrown out like you're going to fish a fish. You throw it.
Intention.
You have the intention, and then you keep that intention with you. Your dreams, you go to a movie, something somebody said, something you did. Your brain will start picking bits and pieces from your daily life of what's relevant to getting there. And a lot of times, you can't know in advance what is going to be relevant. You just don't know. And you understand that because you've already done it's like what you've accomplished already shouldn't have happened, right? According to a linear.
Yes.
I have Michael Merzenich. I read this research, if it started about 15 years ago, I said, finally somebody knows, somebody in science is getting the point. I was so happy. But how am I going to meet him? And sure enough, this happened, and then happened this and that, and then a phone call, and here we are, now we're doing research together. It took 10 years, but so what? Some things take 5 minutes, some things take 20 years. I didn't stop doing stuff in the middle. I didn't sit and waited. I did everything else in the meanwhile, right? Flexible goals. You get a child that can't crawl or can't talk or can't write. If you try to make them crawl, try to make them... I say if he could, he would. If she could, she would. All you're doing is you're driving the limitations deeper into the brain because we learn our experience. So if I try to do this with my hand, but my hand does that, and I have the intention to do this and my hand does that again, next time I think of doing this, I'll do that. This is it. The brain doesn't know anything else. It learns based off what it experiences. So we have to do a process, always starts where we are, always connect to where we are, connect to the person where they are, and start moving around there. And expand it and move. And then we hop and we start moving there. And then we hop and we start moving there. And that's how we really can make big progress very, very, very quickly. And it's unpredictable. The process, we can really create a fantastic process, but we can't control the outcome. It happens when it happens. And my experience is that when I work with a child to be able to do, or an adult to do this, the outcomes are a lot more than what we planned for. And a lot of times things we didn't even think about before. So it becomes like magic.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's that. And the next one is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, I see it as an action, not as a reaction. So people say, oh, I'm so excited. I got my ice cream. I'm so happy. Yeah. That's
because
okay.
Something happened.
Yeah. Enthusiasm is actually a mechanism to amplify differences. So for instance, if I wanted to learn to do something, and I did and all of a sudden I do it in a new way, a little bit better, I can either say, yeah, but I'm still not playing Carnegie Hall, and then the brain goes, oh, not good, inhibition. It's like you take away the oxygen, you put down the lights, okay. Because the brain amplifies what it deems to be successful and help our survival, right?
So you have to celebrate each steps.
Yeah, but not celebrate. So with others, like with the children, I teach the parents not to clap, not to say do it again, okay. Because it inhibits. It actually creates inhibition, and it shifts the attention of the child from themselves to outside, to approval. If you want to be really a powerful person, whether people approve you or not doesn't matter. You can care to empower other people. You can decide to be a good human being, but not because they approve of you. This is...
So how do you learn to
do that?
Yes.
You decide to. So one way, for instance, an exercise you can do is you can go to the supermarket and you can buy some things and you stand in line and you decide that the checkout person decide to find something that you really like about them. You don't have to talk to them. It can be the buckle of their, the button on their shirt. It can be their hairdo. It can be their voice. Just learn to look at them and be enthusiastic and really something you really are enthusiastic about. Every time there's rain, I heard the news yesterday to know what the weather is going to be. And they say, it's going to be really great tomorrow because we're going to have sunshine. But then Friday, everybody get ready. It's not going to be so great. And I went like, what a stupid, awful way to talk about the weather. Why isn't rain wonderful? Every drop is a celebration. We need the water. And it smells good and it cleans the air. Oh my God, I'll get a little wet. Okay, then get dry. You see, people it's really education.
So you have to educate yourself.
About you and about other people. Not clap and say you're a good boy or you're a good man.
But can you celebrate yourself, for example?
Oh, you better. You better. And it's the hardest is to celebrate the self. I'm talking from experience. You know, the hardest is to celebrate the self, because we are so we internalize the criticism and all that crap.
So don't wait to have a celebration from others,
Yes.
but learn to give your celebration.
Yeah, yeah, celebration in terms of seeing. So, you know, for me, I don't even experience it so much as celebration, but when I work with people, very often I see the miracle before they get it, that it's amazing. I see into the future. I see the trajectory. I see where it's heading. So when the child could write a letter half in, half out of the box, I knew that he's going to be able to write now. His mother couldn't know that. So I carry the enthusiasm for other people. And one of the reasons that people get so good, do so well around me, is because I get enthusiastic and they're being like, oh, what did I just do? Oh, I did that. Oh, great. And then it perceives the difference and it's learned.
So you don't say it is a right thing. You
Never.
Are just enthusiastic.
I said, this is it. Feel. Now you do that. Now it's louder. Now it's softer. Do you like it? Don't you like it? And when it's something that doesn't work for me, I'm very open about it. I worked with a boy that was really pretty destructive a couple of weeks ago. He said, well, I like mischief. You know, mischief is like you're cute, you're doing little jokes on people. I said to him, that's not mischief. I said, that's disgusting behavior. I said, this, not you're disgusting, but this is disgusting behavior. He says, I don't like it that you call it disgusting behavior. I said, you don't have to like it. You like it or you don't like it. This is disgusting behavior. This is mischief. This is being polite. This is being destructive. I just gave him, so you know what he could do? He could stop being destructive. Because most people, when they're destructive, they don't know it. It looks like they know it because you see it, but they don't see it. People do bad behaviors. People fail because they're lacking sufficient differentiation. They're lacking sufficient perception of differences, so they don't have the road to get there. So the next essential, because I really have to leave.
I will close the door if I don't have the 9.
Okay, so we are now, we are movement, slow, variations, force, goals, enthusiasm. We have 3 more to go. The learning switch. The learning switch is a bit harder to talk about, but physiologically, the brain is either in a learning mode or is not in a learning mode.
Okay.
And I talk about organic learning, personal learning, learning where you change as you learn. So I'm not talking about memorizing the date of when Napoleon went to Russia or something, right? Invaded Russia. It's also important learning, but I'm taking the kind of learning that each time you do this little piece of learning, you're a different person.
You embed as a...
It's you. It's kinesthetic. It's who you are. It's you discover it. It's a discovery within yourself. So a simple example is if we're sick, if we have fever, if we're tired, if we have, we're distracted. Our learning switch is not on. If we're fearful, we are not gonna learn the kind of learning we're talking about. We're not going to. The brain is in survival mode, so that's very easy to see that it might learn certain things that you learn under traumatic conditions, but that's a learning that reduces differentiation and throws the brain off a good track, like brings it to post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that. So I'm not talking about that now. But then the brain can be in a learning mode. And in a learning mode, it can be different levels of potency. And it's an action. It's you learn to learn. You learn what it feels like to learn, and then you do it more, and then and you become a really potent learner. So I work with people. And the thing I do from the very first moment I start working with them, I don't really care in the beginning, the arm is here, the leg is there, they read, they don't read. I'm not worried about that because I know that if their brain is going to be a good brain, they're going to learn it. I rely on the brain. I don't have to worry about that. But I have to make sure that the brain is doing its job, that it's a good brain. That's why Merzenich wrote that my work helps people have a stronger, better brain. He doesn't say, her work helps people touch their toes or read. I can do that, but the better your brain, the better you can learn. So the learning switch, especially when you work with yourself, you know, you say, oh, I want to learn this, but you go inside and say, okay, can I really, am I in that mode where I can be receptive, I can learn? If you are, fine. If not, don't do it that time, do it another time. And all the essentials that I just mentioned, all of them also awaken the learning switch. You slow down, the learning switch gets more potent. So it's interrelated. The next one is imagination and dreams. Imagination is by itself, when you intentionally use imagination, you upgrade your brain.
Einstein loves that.
Yeah, but it is. The brain doesn't really know the difference. Like when you dream a dream at night, and then you wake up. When you were dreaming the dream, you didn't know you were dreaming. The brain doesn't know. It just does what it does, right? So it's brilliant and it's an idiot at the same time. So we have to make sure we use it in a good way. And imagination upgrades the brain. Training ourselves to really close our eyes. It's not simple to do, to really, and one of the easy ways to train imagination is when you decide to do a movement, you do it, and then you stop, and then you imagine doing it. Because it's so concrete and it's so immediate. So, and movement is...
It is a reason why visualization in sport is so powerful.
It's so powerful, and you can make it even better in the sense that you want to bring the feeling of doing it, and then you do it, and then you want to do it differently. So you want to bring variations, not just go in a narrow funnel. But yes, that's one of the reasons it's so powerful. And you upgrade the brain, and then you go back and you try and you say, oh, how close is my imagined movement to my actual movement? You understand?
Yes.
And then you go back and you imagine it. And then you imagine, okay, I'm going to move it like this, right? So I'm showing you. And then you move it like this. And then you go back and forth. Another very powerful thing to do is to imagine on one side. So you learn to do a certain movement, I don't know, whatever you want to learn to do, but you do it on one side only. And it's very good to do it lying down, because then you take away the demand of the gravitational force, to the balance demand. So the brain is much freer to take risks. And you lie down and you do a movement and you get yourself, and I do that in my tapes, in my DVDs and so on. And I have a lot of stuff also on YouTube that people can see. And you do that, and then you imagine it on the other side. And you do a movement, and then you imagine it on the other side. And soon enough...
And you do it in the other side.
Either you do a whole sequence on one side and you imagine it only on the other side. Very often, because by doing it on one side, you know what to imagine. One of the problems of asking people
and then, do you do what you imagine in the other side? I start to do that. Okay, I imagine
that in this side.
And the
well,
third step,
you imagine for a while. You can do what you want. You can do sometimes just do one movement to see how well you imagine.
Yes, but when I finish to imagine, do I try to do it with...
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes you just sequence imagine, or you do it, but you do it one time. To test it, to check it, to see how good your imagination worked. Whether what you thought was useful or not.
Do you advise to do that every day?
Yes, if you are up to it. I mean, it's amazing, because you really train your way of your thinking. You train your thinking that way.
Wow.
It's and because it's connected to movement and the feeling of movement, it's real. It's because people can sit, I mean, she did very well, The Secret, so people sit and watch the video, and, they talk about quantum physics, which is basically the model of the brain, but it's fine. But then how do you get from sitting on your sofa to having $2 million in the bank? And most people just don't, because it's not enough to just have the idea. You have to take action. And you have to be good at how you take action, and that's where the essentials come in.
And you have to learn to do what your brain can imagine. Yes,
and make it closer and closer.
Okay.
You see, because imagination, think of it as thinking. True thinking leads to a change of action, in action. Thinking generates action.
So last question, short question. If I am an entrepreneur and I have a lot of ideas, to train that, it could be to try a lot of my new ideas.
Yeah, but yes, and then I mean we have to take it case by case. It's a little hard to generalize. Depends what your ideas are, but you do small. You think, how am I going to get? What am I going to do? There's elements that you can already think. You imagine, then you test it out. You try it, then you come back. You do little tests, little elements that you can test.
I'm understanding why I improved a lot in public speaking, because I was shy, and I started to do one conference each day during 1 year. So a lot of conferences I did, and each day I was looking for just one thing to try differently.
Okay,
and
here
I
you go.
improved
That's what I'm talking about. So here you have it systematized and associated to brain science. That's basic, because I have a ton of research quoted in the back in both of the books.
So how the people can follow you? Just
Wait, so there's one more essential.
Okay, yes.
So, and that is awareness. Now, I think of awareness not as a passive thing, but as an action. Every one of my essentials is action-based.
What is the difference between awareness and consciousness?
Okay, I do make a difference. I write about it. Most people say it as one thing. I use it as two different things. Consciousness is a general sense of orientation in space and so on. So if you have a dog, the dog knows where the food is, right? If you pack your bags, the dog is going to get sad. So that's consciousness. The dog is conscious enough to notice, to react to the fact that, you know, their suitcases are going to leave, right?
Yes.
However, I doubt it that the dog that sits moping on the floor being sad, I doubt that at that moment the dog says, oh my goodness, look at me. I'm moping because my owner is leaving. It's just doing it. It's not, awareness is,
It's
I
like
know that I know.
Third person.
Yes, it's exactly. My ability to observe myself and know. So I know I'm moving my hand like that. I know I can see you, and and you can layer. And the ability, the skill, awareness is a skill that can be and needs to be developed. I tell you, human beings, adults that are unaware, are painful.
Yeah, for example, in a relationship, in conflict, it's a lot to be able to be aware of what
and to see, and then, but it also gives you freedom. It gives room for invention. It gives room for the unexpected. It gives room for. So awareness, I believe, is a byproduct. The skill, the ability for awareness is a byproduct of the hugeness of the size of the brain, in terms of the connections, the complexity. So the more we evolve ourselves, and the more we feel what's going on, and the more we differentiate, the more we are able to notice what's going on. Awareness.
Yes.
And it's, of course, perception of difference is a big time, right? And it's the youngest function in the brain, it's the slowest function in the brain, and it's the one that humanity could use a lot of. So the final thing I want to say is the word shichlul, S-H-I-C-H-L-U-L, shichlul, doesn't exist in the Latin languages, I checked. It's a Hebrew word. And what it means is increased improvement and increased refinement through increased complexity. Improvement and refinement, increased refinement through increased complexity. That means that if I want to be able to do a refined movement, if I don't have enough differentiation, it can't be very delicate. It can't be very, so the complexity, the differentiation, the size, the freedom that it gives to just do it just the way you think it, just the way you hear it, or in a whole new way. It also means, in the Jewish tradition, in the spiritual tradition, it means crowning beauty. So what I said to you in the beginning, our job is to grow. not to go peel the onion, because all you'll do is you'll cry and find nothing in the center, right? You have trouble, say, okay, what can I learn? Where am I not developed enough yet? Where have I neglected myself? Which aspects of myself is like crude? It's still like a chunk. It's not refined. It doesn't have bits and pieces I can play with to form sentences, to form poetry, to form ideas, to form movement, to form emotional differentiation. And wherever you feel, or people tell you that you are the least, the most trouble, that's where you have least differentiation. And sometimes if you want your business to work better, but you have a lot of differentiation in business already, but you really are not that great with your kids and your wife. If you go and differentiate yourself, your movement, your emotions, your relationship to your kids and your wife, you will find that you will do a lot better in your business. Not because that is directly, it's because you as a brain will have now, that will be differentiated and integrated into the total computation, because one of the ways of thinking, the brain just computes nonstop. So if I want to put my hand here, the brain has to compute what to do with my bones and muscles to get me there, right?
It's great.
Now you know everything about my work.
Yeah, I know a lot of things. I will discover more things. So you have to buy this book, I think. If you are here now at the end of this video, buy this book.
Can you get my, oh, here. And I want people, if they have children with special needs.
Move into life and kids beyond limits. So go on Amazon, we can find Amazon, and you can buy it now. Just take action now. I would like to thank you very much. It was an amazing interview. I loved it.
Yeah, and you asked me before where people can find.
Yes.
They're just my website. So Anat Baniel Method, ANatBanielMethod.com, or if they just put in Anat Baniel, Google will get them there. I love the interview. I mean, you're a real thinker. I love that. That was wonderful. It's a delight.